The Edmonton Oilers have been to two straight Stanley Cup finals, so it's a little surprise to see them down in 28th in the Core 4 team rankings. Craig, their top two rated Core 4 players, Matt Savoy and Isaac Howard, have both had plenty of NHL ice time this season, but the offensive production has not been there. Why is that?
They're just inexperienced, Gino. I mean, Isaac Howard is coming out of NCAA hockey. He won the Hobey Baker Award last year with Michigan State. And he's a good offensive player. You don't get there by accident. You don't become a first-round draft pick to the Tampa Bay Lightning by accident. He's just not ready for the rigors and the challenges of the National Hockey League. Matt Savoy played in the American Hockey League last year. He's showing signs of getting those opportunities. So he's a year ahead of Isaac Howard at this time. I think that, again, we start to look at these young players with promise. Gino, the NHL is a hard league to play in. And certainly good players are coming out of the NCAA. They're coming from Europe. They're coming from the CHL. And you don't see these good young players performing at the levels they do without having the skill. But you got to be able to do it at the NHL level, and the NHL is not easy to do it in. And I think that Isaac Howard has found that. I think Matty Savoy continues to find that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with where they find themselves. I think it just speaks to where they're at in their development path. Perhaps with Draisaitl and McDavid, and you're looking at adding some offensive skill around them, you think, okay, maybe they could be a little bit more productive with those guys around them. Well, it's just another example of as good as they are in terms of their talent, as great as McDavid and Draisaitl are, there's still a timeline that has to be followed. And I think both Isaac Howard and Matty Savoy are both following that. Now, that being said, Gino, I don't have any question in my mind that both these players are going to be solid offensive producers in the National Hockey League. I think they'll be really good second-line wingers, and that's important. Teams need really good second-line wingers, and I think they can be that. They're just not ready to be that right now.
All right, as somebody who's seen young guys trying to make the transition to the NHL, what do you think is the toughest part of it? The actual physical nature of the fact that they're now playing against guys way older and way bigger than them, or the mental aspect that suddenly the time and space that they had previously is suddenly gone? Which one of those two is more difficult to transition in?
Yeah, Gino, I'm not so sure that one or the other is more difficult. I think they go hand in hand with part of development, and players will tell you that as good as they've been at the lower levels, that they're always amazed by how fast the NHL is, how good the players are, how little space they have. So you're trying to adjust that from a mental point of view, knowing, oh boy, like I know what I was able to do, but am I going to be able to do it now? And what's it going to take for me to do it? And then the understanding, going through it. I can't begin to tell you over the years, Gino, how many times you would tell a player, listen, you're going to have to be quicker, you're going to have to be faster. You bring them up to the NHL and that player comes to you and says, wow, boy, the players are strong. Boy, they're fast. You know, so they have to experience it, and then you have to help them through it. What you don't want young players to have to deal with is an erosion of their confidence, an erosion of their abilities, where they start to like go into a shell, so to speak, kind of become more reserved. You want to make sure, and I think with Isaac Howard, sending him down to the American Hockey League to be on the first power play, to get lots of offensive minutes, a lot of puck touches is really important, because as Matty Savoy is still getting those opportunities in the NHL, Isaac wasn't. So you're trying to balance those two things out. I think it'll help Isaac in terms of understanding, because he played in the NHL and knows how fast it is. It'll help him mentally with his confidence. And now Matty has got to try to get his game up in terms of productivity so he doesn't lose that confidence. But I think both those elements factor in together, maybe not together at the same time, maybe weighted a little bit differently depending on where you're at, but they're both really important in terms of progression.
The Oilers, maybe more than any other team, are in a win now mode, Craig. How much more creative do you expect Oilers management to get in trying to do everything they can to bolster their NHL lineup this season?
Well, I think they have no choice. You know, I mean, this is a win now team, and Connor McDavid's made it very clear that he wants to compete for Stanley Cups, plural. not a Stanley Cup. Now you got to win the first one to try to get to the second one. I get that. But for the Edmonton Oilers, from ownership right on down, this is clearly about finding ways to get your team to a level where not only can you compete for a Stanley Cup, where you find a way to win the Stanley Cup. So that is the mandate, Gino. It's not changing this year. It's not changing next year. And that's the goal for this franchise. It's been very clearly stated by Connor McDavid. And when one of the greatest players in the game right now, the most skilled player on the planet right now, when he's made a statement very clear that's about Stanley Cups, I think everybody's paying attention and has heard it very clearly.
There's no doubt they are on the clock. Lots more Core 4 content available on both TSN.ca and on TSN's YouTube page.